the keeper of the Midnight Library. The world outside had long since surrendered to the night. In the small town of Elmwood, where the streetlights were few and far between, the darkness was a deep, velvety blanket, punctuated only by the silver pinpricks of stars. In a cottage on the edge of the Whispering Woods, a single light burned. Alara did not sleep. For her, the night was not a time of rest, but of watchfulness. She was the keeper of a peculiar, personal library that only truly came alive between dusk and dawn. Her cottage was a labyrinth of shelves, each one groaning under the weight of books that were not books at all. There were jars and boxes, tins and chests, each meticulously labeled in her elegant, looping script. This was her collection of memories, of moments, of feelings that were too fragile for the harsh light of day. Tonight a restlessness was upon her. It was a specific kind of sleeplessness, not born of anxiety, but of a quiet, humming anticipation, as if the night itself was holding its breath. She moved to a specific shelf, the one made of driftwood, smooth and pale. Her fingers, familiar with every contour, skipped over jars labeled "The scent of first rain on dry earth," and "The echo of a distant train." They stopped at a small, cork-stoppered bottle that seemed to hold not a substance, but a captured twilight. The label read, "The night the clock stopped." She uncorked it. A sound, or perhaps the memory of a sound, whispered out. It was the deep, profound silence that follows the cessation of all mechanical ticking. With it came a feeling of expansive, endless time. She closed her eyes, and the cottage fell away. She was standing on the porch of her childhood home. The air was warm and thick with the scent of night-blooming jasmine. She was 10 years old. A sudden, town-wide power outage had stilled every clock, every appliance, every hum of modern life. In the overwhelming quiet, her father had taken her hand and led her outside. "Listen," he had whispered, and she did. She heard the world she never usually could, the rustle of a possum in the magnolia tree, the symphony of crickets and frogs, the soft sigh of the wind weaving through the pines. They had lain on the cool grass, pointing out constellations until her eyes grew heavy. There was no need to go to bed, no schedule to keep. Time had become a vast, gentle ocean, and they were simply floating on it. She had never felt so awake, so perfectly peaceful. The memory faded, leaving a warm afterglow in her chest. The restlessness softened, but did not vanish. She turned next to an old, dented biscuit tin. Its label was faded but clear. "Midnight Conversations with a Stranger." She opened it. The air around her grew cool and carried the faint, salty tang of the ocean. She was 22, on a solo trip to a coastal village. Sleepless from the unfamiliarity of it all, she had wandered down to the deserted pier. There, an old fisherman was mending his nets by the light of a lantern. He had nodded to her, not surprised to see another soul adrift in the late hours. "Can't sleep?" he'd asked, his voice like gravel smoothed by the sea. She had shaken her head. He had patted the space beside him on the weathered wood. They sat in companionable silence for a long time, listening to the rhythmic lap of the water against the pylons. "People think the night is for sleeping," he had said eventually, not looking up from his net. "But it's for listening. The day shouts, the night whispers. You have to be quiet to hear its stories." He told her tales then, of selkies he claimed to have seen, of storms that rose like angry gods, of ships whose lights vanished into the fog, never to return. He wasn't just telling stories. He was giving her pieces of the night sea itself. When the first hint of dawn painted the sky peach and lavender, he simply nodded, gathered his nets, and left. She never saw him again, but his words lived in this tin, a treasure of shared solitude. The memory ebbed, leaving her feeling connected to all the other wakeful souls in the world. Her journey through the shelves continued. She opened a velvet pouch that released the feeling of a cat purring on your chest. A deep, vibrational comfort that resonated in her bones. She brushed her fingers over a smooth stone that held the view from a mountain top at 3 a.m. A feeling of immense, cold, and beautiful solitude. With each memory she visited, the night outside her window seemed to deepen, to become richer. Her sleeplessness was no longer a state of absence, but one of profound presence. She was not missing sleep. She was attending the night's silent mass. Finally, she came to the newest addition to her library. It was a simple, clear glass bowl, empty to the naked eye. But when she passed her hand over it, she felt a gentle warmth. The label was blank. She carried the bowl to her armchair by the window, placing it on the sill where the moonlight could touch it. The Lighthouse Keeper's Night. Relaxing sleepless story. The sea was calm that night, as if it too had decided to rest. Waves rose and fell like slow, deep breaths, their foam glowing faintly under the silver light of the moon. The air was cool, carrying the scent of salt and the far-off cry of a gull who had not yet gone to sleep. At the edge of a lonely cliff stood a lighthouse, its tall white tower painted with moonlight. Inside, its keeper moved quietly, his footsteps soft on the worn wooden floor. He was alone, but he did not feel lonely. The lighthouse had been his companion for many years, its great lamp turning steadily above, sweeping a golden path across the ocean again and again. Tonight, he could not sleep, but that was no burden. He brewed a pot of tea, chamomile with a hint of honey, and sat by the round window that overlooked the endless water. Steam curled gently upward, fogging the glass. He listened. The world outside was not silent, but it was gentle. The ocean whispered as if telling secrets to the shore. The wind sipped softly through the rocks, carrying the smell of distant rain. The slow rhythm of the waves matched the rhythm of his breathing, as though the sea itself were lulling him into calm. He thought about the ships far out beyond the horizon, their crews perhaps awake as well, watching for the turning light of the tower. Somewhere, a fisherman was sitting in a quiet boat, humming to himself. Somewhere, someone was lying awake, looking at the same moon. The keeper felt connected to them all, a part of a quiet fellowship of sleepless souls. After a while, he left his chair and climbed the spiral stairs to the lamp room. The great glass lens turned slowly, throwing its golden arm far across the water. He stood beside it, watching as the light swept the sea, revealing the shining curve of waves, the wet gleam of rocks, the distant sparkle where water met the stars. He stayed there for a long time, just breathing, just watching. The night did not rush him. There was nowhere he had to go, nothing he had to finish. There was only the slow, patient work of keeping the light burning, so that others might find their way. And as dawn began to rise, turning the horizon pink and gold, the keeper smiled. The sleepless night had not been wasted. It had been full of peace, of quiet company, of the sea's slow song. He blew out the lamp, closed the window shutters, and lay down on his narrow bed. His body was tired, but his heart was light. As the first gulls cried to the morning, sleep finally came, soft as the tide.